This video is about how to submit a form using PyScript to Django application and how to validate submitted data on Django side. This video can be useful just because of data validation part on Django side. I will show how to write a custom validator to validate users' inputs and how to use it with the ModelForm instance. In this video, PyScript is responsible for sending AJAX POST-requests to Django and for rendering a response from Django. I am clicking on the Submit button, and PyScript sends a POST request to my Django application. Django creates an instance of City model and sends back its name. If I use non-letter characters in the city name, this name won't pass validation. I used here a server-side validation, and that's why the input field is colored in red after the click. And that's it. A very simple example. So I have here a very basic Django project. It has the only one app, cities, and only one URL pattern that says that all requests to the root address will be handled by the PyScript submit form handler view. And the get method of the PyScript submit form handler view just renders to a user the index template. There is also the post method for handling AJAX post-request from PyScript, but it's empty for a while. In its turn, an index template has two sections, one for a form and one to render cities. I don't use a form tag here just because we are going to use a PyScript, and so we have to send JSON objects to Django. And the irony of the case that technically it's not a submitting a form, and to use the form tag is not required here. My form is pretty simple, it's just a div block with bootstrap classes that contains a row with two columns. One column for an input field and one for a submit button. This layout allows me to keep the input field and the button on one row. Also, there is a div to render cities that PyScript will get from Django. If cities query set is passed to the template, the UL list will be populated with the city names. It will create a list item tag for each element in the cities query set. In the index template, I also have attached bootstrap CSS classes and a CSS file, style CSS, to add some styles for list item tags. To use custom CSS styles and a Python module to use with a PyScript, I added static files dirs with a static element to settings py. And then I loaded the static filter with this line at the beginning of the template. So, as the video is about PyScript, let's add it to the project. I need the PyScript.net website, the installation section, and I need the script link. Let's paste it in the head tag. Okay, now let's create a new Python file in the static folder. Let's say it'll be script.py. And let's add this script.py file to the index template. To do it, we have to use a special PyScript tag. And its source attribute is the path to the script.py file. So, submitting a form with a PyScript or with a JavaScript means that when a user clicks on the submit button, we have to get the value of the input field and send it to our Django app. To do it, first of all, we have to set a click handler on the submit button. So first of all, let's add to the button an ID attribute. Then the onClick handler will be defined in the script.py module. Let's open it and let's create a new function. The submit form function, for example, that will take an event from the browser as an argument, with a pass for a while. The submit form function is the handler that will be called when a user clicks the submit button. Now I have to set an event listener on the button. Let's create the main function. And let's get the button by its ID. I want to use the getElementById function. And the ID of the button is just button. And to set a listener on it, we have to use the addEventListener method. Let's call it. The first argument is the name of the event we want to listen, and the second argument is the result of the createProxy function from PyOdite module. We have to create proxy objects of our functions so JavaScript can use them as callbacks. And as an argument, I am passing the submit form function as an object. I don't call it. And let's import PyOdite. And let's call the main function. Now let's back to the submit form function. I want to describe here the actions that will be performed when a user will click the button. First of all, I have to get the value of the input field and pass this value to Django side as a body of a post request. Then after Django will respond, I want to show a user the result of the response. Okay, the first step is to get the input field to read a user's input. To identify the input tag from other tags, we can use the ID attribute again. So let's add the ID attribute to the input field, to the input tag. Let's say it'll be just city input. And to get the input tag, we can use again the getElementById function or querySelector function. And the hashtag means an ID attribute. We got the input field as an HTML element, and I want to get its value and save it to a city variable. City, then I need city input, and I need its value property. Okay, we got the city name that a user inputted, and now I want to create a body for a post request. Body will be a dictionary with the name key, and the value of this key will be the city variable. The key of the dictionary should match to the name of the field in our Django model and the field in the ModelForm class. It's an important detail. It's the name key because I will use the name field for our city model a bit later. And the body of a post request should be serialized to JSON format. So let's wrap our dictionary to JSON dumps function, dump string, and let's import the JSON module. Okay, we got the body, and now let's make a post request. To make request to Django app, I want to use a separate function. Let's say it'll be the make request function. Let's call it make request. It gets the root URL. The method will be post, and the body will be our body variable. And I want to save the response from Django to the response variable. And the last detail. The makeResponse function will use the PyFetch function that is a wrapper over JavaScript fetch function. And the fetch function is an asynchronous function. And the calls of asynchronous functions should be performed using the await keyword. Await. And accordingly, the submit form function should be asynchronous. Async. And now let's create makeRequest function. It should take 3 arguments: URL, method and body. This function I want to use to send post requests only. As you probably know, post requests should contain a body, and Django requires to use CSRF tokens. This function will get a body from its call, and now let's get a CSRF token. So in the index template, let's add a CSRF token filter. And to get its value, let's get the input tag with a CSRF middleware token name. I want to use the get elements by name. So the CSRF variable will be get elements by name. It will return a list. And the name will be CSRF middleware token. It's a list. I need the first element and I need its value. And now we have to pass this token to Django, and I prefer to do it via requests headers. So let's define the headers variable. It'll be a dictionary. And also I want to use x requested with and content type headers and x CSRF token, of course. And the x CSRF token key will get the CSRF variable as the value. And then I'm going to send a request to my Django application with the PyFetch function. So response variable will get this value, await PyFetch. PyFetch is a wrapper for JavaScript fetch function, and so it uses the same API. The fetch function is an asynchronous, as you know, and so we have to use the await keyword, and accordingly the make requests function should be asynchronous too. Async. And of course we have to import the PyFetch function. Okay, and now let's make a request to our Django app with PyFetch. URL will be URL, the method will be method, body will get the body variable, and the returning value will be just response JSON. Return await the server response, and then I'm calling the JSON function, JSON method. So this function, make request function, will just make a post request to our Django application and return some response from it. Let's back to the submit form function. We sent a post request with a PyScript, we got some data from Django, and then the response from Django will contain either an errors dictionary or the name of the submitted city. And now I want to check if the response has errors. If the response has errors, I want to add to city input the bootstrap is invalid CSS class. We can do it using the add method of the class last attribute. So city input class last, and I'm calling the add method, and I want to add the is invalid CSS class. Otherwise, if there is no errors, first of all I want to change CSS classes for city input tag, city input class last, and now I just want to override the value of the class attribute using the class last attribute, and the new class last will be form control and is valid CSS classes. Then I want to get the UL tag with the city's ID. This UL tag. let's create a last item tag. Last item. Its text will be the city name that we will get from Django. The response variable will have the name key. And let's append this last item to the UL tag. UL append child last item. That's it with the PyScript parts, and now the Django side. On Django side, first of all, we have to create a new city model to store cities in a database. Then we have to create a form to validate users' input. Then we have use this form for validation, and if the input is valid, we have to create a new instance of the city model and return its name to PyScript. Let's create a new model. I need models py. I'm creating a new class, city. It's an instance of the model class. And it will have only one field, the name field. Very simple. So let's make migrations. And let's migrate the database. And also in the views.py file, in the get method, let's get all cities from our models module. Let's import the city model. Okay, and now I want to create a form for my city model. To do it, I have to create the forms.py file. Forms.py. Let's import the forms and the city model. And here I want to create a new class that will be the city form class. City form. It will be an instance of the ModelForm class. Its meta class will have these attributes. The model will be the city, and fields will be just name. If you saw my Django blog tutorial, there is nothing new here for you. I want to use this form for validation purposes only. So let's create a new custom validator. Let's create a new function. Let's say it'll be the validate name function. Validate name. That will take some value as an argument. Value. Then I want to check whether the value contains only letters. If it contains non-letter characters, I want to raise a validation error exception. So if not value is alpha, then I want to raise forms validation error. Django documentation prescribes to use this notation. Okay, now I want to use this validator for my city form. To do it, I have to create the name field. Name. It's a char field. And its validator's parameter gets a list with validators. And I have only validate name validator. So let's paste it here. And that's it. We got the form, and now let's use it. So let's open views.py file, and here I have to import the city form class from forms city form. PyScript will send a post request, and Django class-based views can have a post method that accepts post requests. To create a new city instance, I have to get a city name. The needed data I can get from the body attribute of the request object. So the submitted city will be JSON loads, and I need the request body attribute. The data are in JSON format and as a bytes data type. And so to get Python dictionary, we have to use the loads function from the JSON module. Let's import it. Then I have to create a form. Bound form will be an instance of the city form class. And in the init method of the city form class, I have to pass the submitted city dictionary. City. I want to remind you that the submitted city dictionary has the name key. It's important because Django will match the data from this dictionary to the form and the model fields by the keys of the dictionary. As we have the name field in the city model, we have to use this name in the city form, and also we have to use the name key in the dictionary we pass into the city form class. It's important. Then I want to check whether the bound form is valid or not. If bound form is valid. For more details, consider watching my Django tutorial about form and ModelForm classes. The links will be in the description to the video. If the form is valid, that is, no validation errors were raised, I want to create an instance of the city class. I want to use the getOrCreate method. City object. The name field of the city class should get the validated value. As you probably know, when we call the isValid method, Django will validate and clean the data. And if everything is alright, Django will write the validated and cleaned data into the cleaned data dictionary of the ModelForm instance. So the name parameter gets the value of the name key of the cleaned data attribute of our bound form variable. Bound form. I need the cleaned data, it's a dictionary, and I need its name. And the getOrCreate method will return a tuple where the first element is an object created or fetched from a database, and the second element is a boolean value, whether a new object was created or not. So I need only city object here. And I want to send this object to PyScript. I want to respond with a JSON response class. Return JSON response. Let's import it. And of course, the city object is not a JSON serializable object, it's just Python object. So to convert it to a dictionary, the simplest way is to use the model-to-dict function. Let's import it too. From Django Forms, models, import model-to-dict. And the returning value will be the following: model-to-dict, and I'm passing the city object variable as an argument. Okay, and if the form will be not valid, if the submitted city name will contain digits, for example, I want to return a JSON response object with a dictionary that has an errors key. Return. And the value of the errors key will be the value of the errors dictionary of our form. Bound form, and I need its errors attribute. More details are in my Django tutorials about form and ModelForm classes. So that's it, and let's test it. Okay. Okay, it works. If you like this Django and PyScript video about submitting forms with PyScript and data validation on Django's side, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.